want to have uncomfortable conversations. I want the room to be divided. I want people to be screaming and mad at each other. Then I want them to understand each other. I want to see things from a different point of view. This is Unpopular Opinion. Here we are again. It's Unpopular Opinion, your favorite podcast. My name is Ntsiki. It's such a pleasure to be here. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share our channel so it can grow our community. You know, the episode with Mam Khanyisile was so popular that we had to call her again so she can unpack everything for us. I know you guys are really keen on the information on our history and our spirituality, and we want to fix this for you. Mama, thank you again for agreeing to come back again. I know you want to start our session kakuhle, so we can start with the ritual now.
Ntsiki, thank you for having me back. Siyabulela kakhulu. Sivume umthombo walapho iphuma khona le knowledge. Andiphetanga impepho ke. Ndiphethe marijuana, so I hope izovutha. Because sifuna nje ismoke.
What does that represent?
Because marijuana is a cleanser in African spirituality. That's why noma une flu, sithi boile, uyisele, just add honey and lemon and drink it. So sifuna nje the smoke. Because ismogo lesi represents the 4 elements of our spirituality. So ngumhlaba lo, thokozani bogogo nabomkhulu. And then ngamanzi lawa, and lamanzi especially abuye Nile River lawa. So amanzi takes for both. Amanzi and the wind. Yeah, wenza the wind, and then impepho, it stands for the fire.
So earth, fire, wind, and water.
That's the cornerstone of our spirituality. So, yes. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't have minded just to take out my joint and we could have done this properly. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah, Sala, anyway. So, it will roll your joint.
We invite all the spirits to be with us.
Sibamema bonke, ikakhulukazi umoya wesifazane eAfrica, the matriarchal spirit.
So now, last time when we were together, at least we got a context of who you are. Now we want a context of who we are, where we come from. The transatlantic slave, Ndondon. We just want to know all the colonizations that happened in Africa. So take us all the way back and give us the timeline.
Ngiyamthanda all the way back ngoba normally masikhuluma ngecolonization and slave trade siya to 1400, which is when the Europeans arrived. But they are the last to come with brazen slave trade and brazen colonization. If isifuye emva properly, faneke sizikhumbuze ukuthi the Greek Empire invaded and colonized Kemet, which Arabs did codename Egypt. So they did capture part of the territory in the north. When the Greek Empire collapsed, that was the first known European empire on earth. We had already been thousands of years on earth. They are the people who arrived yesterday by right.
When you say we had already been here thousands of years, what do you mean?
I mean Africans as a race are the first race on earth. So by the time the Arab, what they call Mongoloid yellow people, come on the earth, we are already here. But at least they date better than Abelungu. They are the second race that emerged. White people emerged yesterday. Truly, as I say, the first known empire, Yabo, is the Greek Empire. So you can go and look at history yourself. Is around 800 BCE. And you go and you say Nubia. You can say 3000 BCE. And I'm talking about the late Nubia, not even the Nubia that founded Kemet.
Yo.
So, yeah. So the Greeks then, as an empire, so maybe we should call Europeans out and say this is in their blood. Their first empire on earth, the Greeks, did invade up north. That empire was replaced by the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire itself invaded North and colonized it. So then the Arabs came up, the Turks, the Ottoman Empire, as a world empire. They've done the same, invaded and colonized Gebona, and it was not just up north, Angit. They first conquered Egypt, Kemet renamed it Egypt. From that vintage point, Islam spread throughout East Africa, North Africa, and Western Africa. That's 476 AD, it is dated. That's when Islam and Arabization arrived on this planet, on this continent, yes, Africa. Fast track 8 to 9 centuries ahead, in 1400, the first Europeans to arrive here was Portugal and Spain, because they were the empires of Europe then, because they had maritime power. Britain had not emerged as the maritime power. So they are the first to arrive.
What's maritime power?
Maritime means because to come to Africa, you needed to have big ships to sail here. And you needed to be able to transport your soldiers if you conquer a land to hold ground, in army language, but hold the ground. So maritime power simply means you had the ability to carry yourselves, your logistics, your soldiers, your colonial administrators, all the way from Europe to Africa. So they were maritime powers. It explains why they were here. They were the first to be here. So now they are here, they start fighting each other about colonizing us. And then the Pope calls them and he issues what is called the Papal Bull, where he dissects the world and says, Portugal, Spain, you will concentrate on South America. That's why a bulk of South America is Spanish colonized. Portugal, you will take Africa. I don't know where they went wrong because they only took Mozambique, Angola, Sao Tome, Principe, Guinea-Bissau, Cabo Verde, 5. But I think then Britain came up as a superpower and the French and the others. So now they started having competition. So that's the demarcation that the Catholic Church made. And yes, the Catholic Church had no issues with them colonizing. They just had issues with two powerful Roman Catholic states fighting each other again for barbarians, so to put it. So the Pope then called them to order and issued that papal bull. Now, 1400, when they come, who initiates them into how to run a slave trade on us and colonize us? It is the Arabs who had been doing it from 476. So you can count yourself. That was like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 10 centuries down. I mean, they should have perfected that by now, so they knew how. But don't make a mistake. Arabs and the coming in colonizing Europeans also fought wars. Because, for instance, when France wants to take Algeria, which now is Islamized and Arabized, when they want to colonize it, now we are going to have a Muslim-Christian war. You know? They're not fighting for goodwill, both of them. The other one is fighting to retain Algeria as a Muslim state, Arabic as first language. The others are fighting to make it French. So no, they have gone to war over us. The Europeans, except in places where there was no other colonizing power, they had to fight it off to gain those colonies. So in a nutshell, that's what's happened to us. Now, truly, if you want to say African history, Ntsiki, you do realize that a bulk of what we call our, culture, a bulk of what we call our culture truly is bastardized. I call it post-colonial bastardized culture because if the Greeks came here, the Romans came here, the Arabs in 476, about 10 centuries, then the Europeans came, they haven't left. Because we are now in what we call neocolonialism, economic and cultural colonization. So Africa has not been herself since how many? Since we can go to BCE for the first part of Africa. So if you truly, that's why when someone, blackmail at African history, African culture, I always say, which one are we talking about? The pre-colonial, and that is before the Greeks and the Romans and the Arabs. Or is it the colonial? Or is it the post-colonial? Because the post-colonial itself is bastardized. Because remember, the first reaction to colonialism, which is Pan-africanism, Nkrumah, or Nyerere, or Patrice Lumumba.
That's now.
Yes, but they were influenced by communism, which there was a Cold War already, the West against USSR. So USSR sold the doctrine of communism and socialism, truly which is all encompassing in terms of freedom and democracy. Besides, they were supporting our struggles. So those people then use socialism and communism as a liberating agenda. And I think maybe that's why in all their writings, they have dared not to go back to say, what were we before we were made what we are? What were we before 476 AD, which is when the Arabs came? But what were we before the Greeks and the Romans came? They didn't take us that far. It's fine. What they needed at the time was to wrestle us politically so that we self-govern. Maybe their agenda was that. It's okay. But the next generation that came, we didn't take it as far back. We are still running with Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism is not Afrocentrism. It does not say everything you do, locate Africa as the center. You understand? So while it's fine and it was okay for the time, we need to go beyond Pan-Africanism and go Afrocentrism. And what do I mean by that? For instance,
what's the difference?
Yes, I'm coming there. See, in almost all of our cultures, from Cape to Cairo, patriarchy has been posited as the center in terms of gender relations. But if you look at our pre-colonial history, it does not, actually. And we'll come to that. Just remember to ask me that question. It does not. But because Pan-Africanism was a reaction to colonization, it was a reaction to Ghana being free, Ghana, which was not a state pre-colonial. Because the Ashanti, whoever, they were various kingdoms running their own thing. Now, Ghana has been set up as a British colony based on Christian patriarchy and Christian patriotism. So when you are a reaction to that, your own philosophy will be limited by that. That's what happened to Pan-Africanism. So in 94, we are a reaction in the liberation struggle, which I was in, by the way, as a reaction to first apartheid, which was based on Christian nationalism or Christian national education, however the was called it, but run by the NG Kerk. But before it was the British one. Both are patriarchal. So when we are a reaction to that, when we do pass gender laws, which is what we have done, and I do give the ANC credit for that, is those gender laws are not coming as we are restoring African culture. They are coming as the United Nations by Bizani agenda for democracy. I'm just forgetting the actual name. So it's still not restoring a culture and the dignity it deserves. Because now it comes as if it is the UN that has decided, no, patriarchy is wrong, women must have rights. Oh, sorry, this is what it's called. The United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So now it's coming as a UN agenda for the ANC because we are a reaction to South Africa. Our struggle does not say what was South Africa before South Africa was South Africa. Because if our struggle said that, we would have known that AmaZulu, for instance, Nabati Sisizwe sikaMthaniya, they would know that Umthaniya is a woman and not a man. So they cannot be this ruthless patriarchal if one of their founding personalities is a woman. If we had done that, we would know that Masiti Abaqulusi, Wimini Buto, that Umkabai commanded as a military commander, and she was a woman. Even umntana kokwabo umama, because apparently after she was a twin, yes, naye was commanding ibutho, you know, which is what Inkosi uNdaba did. Ubaba, he was very equitable because even umthaniya inkosikazi kaNdaba, uNdaba uzala usenza ngakhona usenza ngakhona uzala uShaka. Yabona? So if we bothered to say what was South Africa before South Africa was South Africa, we would unpack these things and realize that actually the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights is nothing but pre-colonial African culture. It's the equity that we had. So that then becomes the fundamental difference between Afrocentrism and Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism was okay for that short time. But now we self, and I'm using this in quotes because we know they are still micromanaging our governments. So I'm saying in quotes, we self-administer ourselves, we are self-governing. We can then have the liberty, our universities are under us. We should have the liberty to go back and teach African history as far as thousands of years ago, which is where it originates.
How do we even access it though?
You know, my husband studied in the US and I always was like very critical of African Americans. And then I would say, oh, okay, yeah, I know. They are famous for basketball and music. What else? And my husband would say, start researching pre-colonial Africa and see who's writing. It's not Africans, it's them. So give them the dignity and the respect that they deserve, because while you live on this continent, you have done very minimally to research this continent before colonization. And when I had to do that for my PhD and the first book that I've written, I shocked myself because most of the writing sits them. So I then said, okay, I was ignorant. I amend myself. I am now self-critiquing and snapping out of it. They are not only good for basketball and music and art. When African Americans are truly Afrocentric, even the term Afrocentrism, they came with it. They are the ones who've cautioned us and said Pan-Africanism is this, guys, but Afrocentrism is this. You need to posit everything you're doing. If it's psychology, it's okay. We know the university could have been UCT, it could have been Oxford. They trained you the Western way. But as an African, go now and develop African psychology. Go and read Africa pre-colonially, how the relations were. Come with it down all the way. From that, you'll be able to craft what you call African psychology. So they are saying to all of our things, let's do that. So yes, I say to people, I love Africanism, but I've gone beyond that. I'm Afrocentric. Everything for me is about Africa and being an African. So if you tell me international relations, I'm tempted to say, okay, we are not even in the Security Council of the United Nations. So why are we even talking about international relations? One. Two, we don't have the economic resources because we have allowed them to continue owning the means of production and dominate us. So when you say international relations, what are we there as beggars, or we have a voice? So that's what Afrocentrism will say. Where's the African perspective in everything that you do? What is the African perspective? Don't tell me I must vaccinate against COVID. Yeah, what is COVID? And what's the African perspective to viral diseases? See, the conversations we are not having as a continent.
Even remember when COVID came out, there was no conversation with the traditional healers. And
no.
That was interesting.
No. And when Madagascar said, no, Tina Sinayo, which is our equivalent of Umhlonyane, we can use that. Did African governments back up Madagascar? You then have to ask, then what are we doing as the AU?
But then that means does that mean we're mentally colonized even on a leadership level?
Definitely.
So then what's the point?
That's why neocolonialism is actually, we say it's mental. If it's cultural, it will be mental. If it's mental, it will be cultural. And then we say it's economic too. So we are all guilty. I'm guilty in some ways. I'm not totally liberated. It's a journey. So I'm guilty in some ways. You are guilty in some ways. Some people are not guilty in some ways. They're just guilty, period, because they have not even begun the journey. I was telling your sister downstairs, Utandiswa, I've been to 36 African countries. One thing has stood out for me, that even if we look so harshly on ourselves as a people, South Africans, the semblance of Pan-Africanism or anything remotely Afrocentric still remains a South Africa. I just came from Lilongwe. I arrived yesterday, and I was having this conversation with Kenyans with whom I attended the conference. As soon as I said I'm South African, they said the only place where there's still a semblance of Pan-Africanism or Afrocentrism. I said, how? Because we think we are westernized and we're so harsh on ourselves. And then they said to me, for starters, your parliament is the only one in the whole continent thus far where African spirituality can officially open parliament. It's not allowed in all other African countries. It's either Islam or Christianity. And then they said to me, you do realize in most African parliaments, the traditional attire does not enter. It is not regarded as formal enough to can enter parliament. You still need a jacket and a tie. Right here next door is Zimbabwe, actually. You see? And then a Kenyan friend of mine looked at a Zimbabwean who is a member of MP or of parliament, because I chair a network of African parliamentarians who are committed to fight against illicit financial flows. So we get together as MPs. So a Kenyan MP, I will not name them because I want to protect them, said to me, is that an MP pointing at a Zimbabwean? I said, yeah. He said, he's a man. I said, yeah. With dreadlocks, I said, yeah. He said, that won't fly in a Kenyan parliament. He will not be allowed. So you
natural hair
with dreadlocks. No, he said it won't fly. He will not be allowed. So I'm saying we are guilty in different levels. That's why I say some people haven't even begun the journey at personal level, at family level, at clan level, at national level. Some have begun it. I guess the the beauty of South Africa, even if we're harsh on ourselves and our government, is that at least the space was created, that I give the ANC credit for. A space was created for an alternative thinking. Well, when that alternative thinking is against the ANC, I mean, they're not warm towards it. But at least we are grateful they've created the space, because Ntsiki can come up on Black, which is another thing. Black Twitter is South African. I know.
Yes.
Again, we give African Americans credit, because
No,
that's where we
South
copied it from. Started with us.
South Africa, Twitter, the black people. That's the capital city of Twitter.
Of Black Twitter.
Nje.
Wow, I'm glad.
Nje.
I'm glad, because when I said to my daughter, Black Twitter South African, she said we took it from African Americans. So you're saying never, it's originally
Even
ours.
the African Americans come and check out what
on our Twitter, yes, I've noticed that. So you see those spaces. You can wake up in South Africa and say, but why is Izangoma not at a hospital ward when I need one? And people will take up the conversation, and it will. In African countries, when you say Sangoma, that's witchcraft. When you say Inyanga, that's witchcraft. So truly, the British concoction of the word witch doctor, which we know, is a bastardized. We need to decolonize language, a word that doesn't exist, because you're either a witch or a doctor in a spirituality. Uyinyanga or umthakathi, ayikho inyanga mthakathi or umthakathi nyanga. But they've held on to that word. So anything that does not fit into the mainstream Christianity or Islam is witchcraft. So we still have those blessings, Ntsiki. You know, when you smoke marijuana, we don't automatically assume that you're a criminal and a rapist. It is like that in the bulk of Africa. I mean, I was in Tanzania for a month with my family. My God, the corners we had to go just to get a zol of marijuana, because my husband smokes, my daughter smokes. People say she's 21. I would prefer she smokes and not touch alcohol at all, actually. That's better for me. But the corners we had to go to, my God, the dingy places we had to pass through to get it. So you can tell it's still regarded as a thing of dark places. So we truly are blessed in many respects. And I was talking to your sister downstairs, and she was like, I hear you, and I'm so happy to realize that that's how we are as a people. And she said, but now you're making me jealous, because it means we will dwindle into what they are. They didn't start that way. So the West, in its attack on our culture, language, whatever, they'll also make sure we just become another African country in the end. So maybe it explains why it's easier to open a church in South Africa than it is to get a proper Sangoma or a proper Inyanga. You know, it's easy to open a church. And a church will flourish more than Isangoma or Inyanga will. People aren't worried to make Bushiri a billionaire that he is, but Mabayo Twasa, they want to pay 100 rands. That's another dichotomy. You understand? So we are okay giving money into Christianity, but not into our things. So, yeah. So when your sister said we must be jealous because we'll dwindle into that, they also were never like that originally, if you can check. Yes. I said to myself, then we need podcasts like yours. We need you as a poet to start making South Africans aware we still have something. It's small compared to what it was, but compared to the rest of Africa, it's still small. It exists somehow, so we need to cherish it and make sure we don't lose it. We still have an Afrocentric or a Pan-African voice here. Because for starters, you know that in most African countries, you cannot do mother tongue up to matric, grade 12. It ends at grade 4, abanye grade 6. It's the end of your journey with your mother tongue. It's not offered beyond that.
But why are Africans so easy to colonize and why don't they stand up for themselves?
See, if you go and you read the writings of Arabs when they colonized, and these things are on Google, go and read them, 476 going down, and then read the European ones. There's one book from the Europeans that stands out very clearly for me right now. It's called Christianity, Trade and Politics, or it's Christianity, Politics and Trade, something like that. But the three words are together. Christianity is the first one. It stands in the book that you can't teach Africans God. Africans know God more than us white people. So the thing you do is to make them forsake what they have for what they don't have. It's exactly what they've done to us. We lost what we had for nothing. Because truly, and I am not here bashing Christianity and Islam, the truth is any religion is organized. And when anything becomes organized and it has a political element, it becomes a tool for something, for domination, for colonizing, for whatever, for exploitation. African spirituality, on the other hand, and most people say, oh yeah, but why would I embrace a spirituality which was prepared to die in the face of Islam and prepared to die in the face of Christianity? I said, yeah, because you're talking about organized religion that's supported at government level. African spirituality, on the other hand, is so creative. Actually, to even say African spirituality, we are forcing the term.
Yeah.
Because there are as many African spiritualities out there as there can be languages and ethnic groups.
Yes.
So the only thing is we draw the silhouette that, oh, okay, the skeleton is the same. But the blood vessels, the blood, the bones, the meat, the whatever, that makes this thing tick is creative application, because the ancestors Zagwamtembu will not operate the same as the ancestors Zagwamdise. Our ancestors, our Omia, will not operate the same as our Chomela. So you will have those variations, because actually everything comes from what we call cosmology. Cosmology is always about how you came into being as a people. AmaZulu, for instance, believe Gucci, they came from the reeds. I think which is why the reed dance is so important for them when they celebrate a deity called Nomkhubulwane, who is the goddess of fertility, rainbow, first fruit, because they believe Gucci, they came from the reeds. Bahlubuka, badabuka. That's why umZulu akathi uphuma uthi udabuka phi. Ngoba la udabukele khona, that's where inkaba yakho is, isigodi sakho. So that's their cosmology. And because their cosmology, ithi badabuka at the same time, male and female from Umhlanga, there is no way Zulu people can then come off and tell us they are patriarchal, because the gender relations are always informed by the cosmology. That's why Christianity's cosmologies were created the men first, the women from the men. So there is no other gender relations Christianity can order. Islam was founded by Muhammad, who is a male. So there's no equity there. So there's no other relations that cosmology can order other than the patriarchal relations that Islam is. So you find that cosmologies Zamazulu are so variant and so different. But one thing I appreciate, and in the book that I've just written, I think I've looked at about 40 of them across the continent. Nowhere is a woman created from a man or a man from a woman, or they are created at different times so that one has an upper hand. They all come out together. So if that's African cosmology, how then do we have the patriarchy that we have in African culture today? Because I call it the post-colonial bastardized African culture. Yes, we were taught, and we were taught mainly because of the two religions that came in to conquer and to rule, as in Christianity and Islam, which is why it becomes a problem. It's like I'm talking here, there, and there, because what we are talking about is such an elephant, It's a problem when you can't speak any African language properly. I don't care if you're Tswana speaking and the one you speak properly is Xhosa. It's still an African language. I'm past that now. Just know an African language and know it properly. Because African languages, the trick is in the idioms, Izaka, and the trick is in the saying, Sizisho. So I always say to Africans, to answer your question, how has colonialism impacted us and our bodies, is that find me isisho in Xhosa which you speak well. I actually take my cap off for you and your sister, because you speak Xhosa well, but you can speak English well and you can speak the other languages well. That's where we are supposed to be, which is where I am also now.
I think it's also parenting, I need.
Yes.
Abazali bethu, they think that once you go to private schools, whatever, it comes out the nose, and then they let go of their own.
Exactly.
And it's so important.
Now ungazazi izisho nezaga, sayings and idioms, you will go around saying indoda inhloko yekhaya, the man is the head of the house. But give me isaga sesiXhosa esitsho njalo, uyasazi? Because akusisaga sesintu leso. Angisazi esizulwini. I don't know it in any other language. That thing is found in the Bible and as a result in the Quran. But actually, even Judaists believe it because they are Old Testament. That's where they end up buying the New Testament. Islam and Christianity is more New Testament based. So we were taught that. But if you don't know your language properly, or you're not a person who reflects, angeke uzibuze ukuthi, but why ingekho? Why is ingekho izisho that promote the man as the head and the woman as a servant or as a subject. It will not be there because it truly was not a culture. That's why I said last week, we are the only race, when you put the three races here, that in BCE already, before the Common Era or before Christ, as Christians say, already had women in the public space, and not just as workers, but as leaders in the public space. So colonialism has affected us, one, in that way, where we have gone and said the bodies of women cannot be seen. But the only body that was covered pre-colonial is the body of a married woman. And people say, hi, because it's the body of the husband. No, rubbish. Because we understood that the body has changed form. So that woman herself is not comfortable showing that body. They want it covered. They can show the legs, or here, they don't want to show that body too. You know, they are just like, I'm okay covered. I had my time of my body not covered.
Because you've given birth and everything.
Yes. Now we've gone and we said bodies must be covered. You know, 11-year-old, a 12-year-old cannot have a body that is out because it's enticing to men, or you're behaving like a prostitute. But which African culture clothed a 12-year-old, truly, from head to the ankle? Aiko. You celebrated being young, so that when you've grown up as an adult, you don't relapse and now want to become a child. Enjoy your childhood and enjoy your adolescence, just responsibly. So it has affected us in a manner that the man is the head of the family is also taken into how women must dress. Because a man can walk half naked, it's fine. Yeah. It's okay. That culture also says that African women are just sexual objects. They cannot sexually be stimulated. So a man can walk half naked, it must do nothing to the woman. But a woman cannot do that because it does something to the man. It's a maintenance of patriarchy and the gender relations, where the man is the head, the man is in the public, the man feels, you don't feel. We are told how to feel. So it has affected us in so many ways. We've also made the breast a sexual object. I don't know, maybe it was in African culture, I don't know, but I also know it's a mammary gland in Africa. I mean, when I grew up, women just breastfed. They didn't have to put things over their breasts. We are suffocating the child. Remove that thing, just breastfeed your child. This is Africa. We are not European. We've seen breasts. Because our culture is actually, even
the
with
child is eating. We also eat in public.
Yes.
So why can't the child eat in public?
So, you know, just the gender relations have just been screwed up so much.
Economically, you know? When I think about the impact of colonialism, things like, maybe you can speak to how SAB was formed. Because we had our own alcohol and healthier alcohol. But then that colonialism thing again.
I mean, I've heard Africans say, I know that these things you post so other Africans will listen. So I try, when I've used our language, to repeat that in English again. You know, I've heard an African, an African, when they are in a ritual ceremony, one of our ritual ceremonies, say, I will not drink mkombot, I don't drink that thing. And I'm thinking, wow, what you are missing. Because you will not connect to your ancestors via beer. I know that as Khoseni, you've made a brand, but it's actually not. I think it's just a preference because you like brandy, so it's an excuse to buy it so you can drink it after. But you cannot connect to inyanya, brandy, whiskey, and those things. They are good to have for the party, but umqombothi is what connects you to your ancestors. They haven't changed, you changed. They haven't changed. So mina, when I'm in a ritual ceremony, I actually want to umqombothi. I make a point. Because I want to connect neinyanya zakulendlu. Because here's another way colonialism has affected us. Because I want to connect, for those who will be listening in English, I want to connect with the ancestors of this person I've come to support. And people will say, no, that's demonic. You can't go around connecting to any ancestor. Says who? Says who? They are of clean spirits. That's what must become your overriding message. So I have ancestors now I am totally not related to. That's why Mang Pasha, depending, depends how they feel. Sometimes I call the Litchfields first, and then the Dlaminis, sometimes the Dlaminis first, then the Litchfields, because we are not patriarchal people. So it depends which one is above on that day. And then I call my non-related ones. And I always make a point to say, I love you so much, people. You loved me, you had no reason. You loved me and chose me. I didn't even know you. You still chose me. And I have such a lot of my non-biological ancestors. You know, the queens who are in my book, Neanda from Zimbabwe. You know, the one I talked about last week, Saronia. the Kendake Queens from Nubia. That's why, Sudan, which they've called South Sudan, is so personal to me. That's why the Nile water, I was in the Nile. I was just like, I have to bring this water. It's so personal to me. So, no, umqombothi mawusemigidini when you're in ritual ceremonies, please drink it, because sometimes if you're supporting a friend, especially or close, and even if it's not a friend, ancestors speak in many ways, you've chosen to attend this. You will take a sip or 3 sips and they can give you a message for this person that you came to support. Maybe because they're not hearing and they've been talking to them. Or maybe because they just decided Ntsiki will be able to articulate this better if we tell her to tell this person. So please drink umqombothi, people, connect with your ancestors.
But we get told not to eat and drink at interventions of other people.
Says who? Says who? What doctrine is this? Truly. Because if wena uphahlile ekhaya and your spirit is pure, and mina ngenza umsebenzi ngumemile, why can't you drink it? That's why isukhupha ngithi. Ukhona lo uhlala emsamo kaloku ongazophuzwa yinoma ubani. Siyawuseparate. But ukhona lo that is for the people. Siwenzele nina mos.
And what about inyama yakhona? Because remember when they
same
slaughter,
thing. When they slaughter ikhona lisuswa ihlala emsamo. Izotyiwa yi-inner circle yalapha ekhaya. But ikhona liphekelwe everybody. That's why you are here. Ngesintu, when we get together, we break bread and we take a sip together. Sithi hamba bhekile. So uzahamba njani ubhekile if you guys cannot take it? It's just for abantu balapha ekhaya. It cannot be. But that doctrine, I can tell you again, it's informed by our Christian belief, because I know when I was a born-again Christian, I believed that ukudla inyama ehlatshwe in a ritual ceremony or emgidini okanye to drink umqombothi, I am partaking in things that have been offered to demons or spirits.
Yes.
That's where that doctrine comes from.
Or from is the bad luck of that family now
Yes.
in that
Yes.
And,
Yes. Yes.
So there's a lot of information that
there's a lot of unpacking and decolonialism that we truly need to do. Because here's another thing we shouldn't fool ourselves with. You asked how has colonialism affected us? Whether the Greek, the Roman, the Arab, the European one, is that everything has been bastardized, including our spirituality, by the way. Including our spirituality, because ngesintu sempela mpela mpela, it was more common for a woman to be Sangoma. Sangoma is a seer into the spirit world. Is a seer. So in African spirituality, we believe women are closer to the spirit world. That's why so they were closer, so they were the seers. It was common for men to be inyanga. And our training, ukuba inyanga is not a calling from ancestors. It's something you can see and like. Just like being a doctor. That's why ubutwala ikhwama uthwalela inyanga. You are learning, uyabona ukuthi umixa le, wenza le, wenza le. It's an interest. But ukuba isangoma is a calling. That is why Sangomas zazingachati. It was a life of seclusion. It was a hard life because you are a seer constantly into the spirit. So how will you see into the spirit? Who are pulling your skirts and wanting this attention of yours and this attention of yours, and there's a husband waiting. And that's why it was truly, people did not like it, but it was a calling, they had no choice. It was a real life of seclusion because people were constantly seeing into the spirit. Like, that is why our kings would call and say, you know, that's why Ushaka even tested them, who are the true ones. When he killed Imbuz, I think it's Imbuz or whatever that he killed, smeared the blood, and he said, I just want to see who's true and who's not true here. And then he said, who did this? And people were saying, Ulona, Abego one side, they knew Bazobulawa. People were lying, pulling people, it's this one, it's this one. And there's just one old woman who was just like, me, I'm scared to say who this is. And she was assured, no, speak. And she said, it is the king who has done this. And everyone was just like, yo, this one will be killed now. And it was found out that's actually the true one. So if as far back as that, there was already falseness. Because anything of human beings, guys, it's human nature. Let's face it, anything of human beings will contain an element of falseness. That's why you need to be spiritually attuned to know. If I go and I consult a person, and I have to say this on your podcast, and I'm sure they will hate me, Izangoma Neinyanga out there, but it's okay to be hated. I'm not here to be laughed, but to just speak the truth. When I go to a person with a problem, and they tell me it will cost 6,000 to help you, but I want 3,000 up front, I walk away. I've learned I also used to be gullible. You give them the 3,000. That's not how a true calling works. A true Sangoma or Nyanga will say, it will cost you 6,000. However, just Khanyisile pants. Just give something for the ancestors, however much you have. Let me do this. I'll take you there, I'll give you this. When it starts working, you will come back and say thank you. That's a true one. The one that says it's cost 6,000, but I want 4,000 upfront, walk away, because how do they even know it's going to succeed what they are doing for you? So clearly they don't care about you, they care about your money, not you. Because we are gullible because of how the neo-colonial world has created a hard world out there. So we are gullible, we want immediate answers, which is how Christians are even into fake Christianity themselves, of signs and miracles. So even us who are in African spirituality, we are gullible because we want quick answers now. So people will rob you, Ntsiki. They will clean you. Meanwhile, they are not even true to themselves. We must also, the beauty of African spirituality is that Umsamo is in your house. It's not like Christianity. You don't need to walk into a church. It's in your bedroom. So sit there with your ancestors. Fight it out with them. Don't go and look for answers to your problem from a stranger. They connect to you first. So if anyone comes up now and tell me, my grandmother was buried in Zimbabwe because she left Gauteng with a man in Zimbabwe and they never came back, she died there. And I'm sure she has no tombstone or anything there. So if anyone I consult now says, your grandmother says they need a tombstone, you guys have never visited the grave or whatever, because my mom, out of anger, never went there because she left my mom and her sister here watching Abuya. I think her intention was clean. She meant to come back. She just wanted to see where this man that she's with now comes from. She got sick then died. So my mom had that grudge. So my mom never went, but we are the generation elected to go. So if someone I consult now tells me this, I'll believe them because this was revealed to me first, actually, after your podcast last week, actually. So we must also stop being e-capsule dependent, where everything of yours must be told by outside of you. Yeah, then I'll start lying to you because you are gullible. Yeah. I'll tell you anything and you'll believe it. Who gullible most? Yeah. Because we are not seeking for answers directly between you and your ancestors, between you and Nomvelingane. Ngobi African spirituality, its beauty is that you have a creator and they're called differently in all African languages. I have searched over 50 African languages and I think that's enough for a sample in research. Not a single one of them has a gender god that is one gender, male only. Like the Shona one, Moari is both male and female. Depends what you want from Moari. If you want to go to war and kill, you will approach Moari as a male because it's unfeeling. If you want your problems resolved, then they even say the breasted one, the one that is breast, then you'll approach Moari as a female. So we have a creator. We don't say, the concept God is foreign to us also, by the way. That's another after effect of colonialism. We don't have a God. We have a creator, Umdali, or Imvelaphi yethu, which is where we come from. Then we have, and they are genderless. Then you have deity. Sunomkhubulwane is a deity, for instance, KumaZulu. They still have a deity, God of thunder. You'll find that in all of them, Yoruba is so beautiful to study, and Shona culture, because they will show you the deities, both male and female, but more of them actually are out there. Then you have ancestors, they're both male and female. So you understand when I say you can't have African culture or spirituality or anything that says men first, women behind, or women first, males behind. We've always had a balance, which is why we don't even draw the pictures of the creator Imvelaphi yethu, whom they call God in Islam and Christianity, because we believe they're above human beings. Asna picture, asna. That's why we couldn't even bother to gender them. Why? If we both genders, we believe wherever they are, they represent U, which is both genders in Nguni languages. So
it's so much information because so much has been taken away from us. So this conversation is bringing attention to the fact that historically there's a lot of information that's missing, and spiritually. So now, how do we reverse this process so that we can find ourselves? Because right now we know we're lost. We're like, okay, guys, we're all in weaves, we're in white people's clothes, we're speaking white people's languages. How?
I think start by embracing who you are. Capitalism or Western culture says the family is the nucleus of society. In African spirituality, in African culture and spirituality, the clan is the nucleus of society. Like, Shabalala bonke abashengu, whether it's Shabalala with a C, Shabalala with an S, Shabalala with a T, abashengu bonke. And abashengu do things differently from Zuma. For instance, Thakazelo Saka Zuma ubani, umsholozi. So abashengu will do things differently from umsholozi. Mia, sisidukwa ngithi kuwe, will do differently, for instance, from sisiphe isiduko saziyo samaXhosa. From Ojwaga. So for us, the clan starts first, then it permeates into the family. It's the other way around. The family will apply clan things variously, but the skeleton of the clan will still informs, the silhouette will still inform Bongo Mia, Bongo Mshengu, it will inform them. So I would say all Africans out there, if you don't know Itakazelo Zako, which is another thing that does not exist in Africa. That thing is only in South Africa, in Southern Africa, maybe I should say. I'll talk to you about those whom I have asked, and I'm sure. South Africa, Zimbabwe, Eswatini, I didn't need to ask. I know Lesotho, I don't need to ask. I know Botswana. I'm not even sure of Mozambique. They've all lost it. And people don't understand. Itakazelo is actually a history of where you come from. I know Oshabalala originate somehow from a place in Kenya called Embo, because it exists. And if you look at their culture and how they do things, it is so nguni. Ne? So, qala la kuIthakazelo, know them. Know them by heart. Let them change you. Do you know Ithakazelo also is a prayer, for those who don't know? Ithakazelo zakho will take you into a knowledge about your people. You will never know. How do you even know it? Because you are calling them when you do so. So start there, know your clan. Know your mom's side, your father's side. Know Ithakazelo zakhona. So start at your altar ekhaya. People saying, Mbeke ini. I'm not a Christian pastor. I'm not here to prescribe to you how you connect with your ancestors. We believe in the ways are many, because they're informed by your clan, your culture. So start doing it. They'll reveal more things to you. Do it. Masqala ukuphahla thina, connecting with the Litchfields. I was always troubled. I'm even connecting with colonialists. Some of them show a colonialist. Until I got the revelation, leave them out if that's not who you want to talk to. Because they've suffered the same thing we've suffered. Christianity didn't only oppress it, it has oppressed Europe too, which is how America was found. They came with a movement called the Puritan movement, where they were persecuting your gypsies, people who were into spirituality, calling them pagans and what have you. So I connect with the Litchfields. I even specify, I say the pre-Christian, pre-Europe Litchfields. Those that didn't practice organized religion, those were in spirituality, because spirituality is the same, irrespective. And it is not those spiritual Europeans who colonized you. It's the Christian organized religion ones. So I have nothing to do with those Litchfields. I don't even want to have a relationship with them. I connect with those who gave birth to them, those who came before them. Even with Africans, I do that. I know Gunamuntu Twasile who said to me, oh, but that's so wrong. So you will not call your parents because they were Christian. That's me. I didn't say you should do it. I'm telling you that's me. I don't. I connect with my dad as far back as then. I don't connect with him because I know he died a staunch Catholic. I am clear, Ntsiki, with my story. I'm resolute. I don't mix things. I don't say decolonize, but at the same time, I want to be learning 5 European languages, but I don't know how to speak Swahili or Zulu. That's not decolonize. Then I'm confused. So I'm confused. I have got no partaking in Christianity and Islam. Absolutely none. So angifuni kan babiza bangiphathele into zabo ezihamba ne-incense yaseRoma ne-holy water yaseRoma. I am not in that space. I'm in the space of those who came before them. So I call them. And bias by Mamela, because my mom did both, although she never belonged to a church, but she did believe in Christianity somehow, So my mom has found a way to reveal herself to my daughter, and that's fine. That's the vessel she has chosen. She couldn't choose me because where she is, she understands my stand and what I stand for. I will call her people before her. Fortunately, she taught me who they are. Her father, her grandfather, her great, I know them up to at least the 6th generation going back. Those are the people I connect with. So
So we started ourselves.
Start with yourself, and the ancestors will direct you, guys. They are real. They speak back. Before you can ask me, because I'll mislead you. I'll tell you how the Tshabalalas are doing it. You are not a Tshabalala. And even me, it's a marriage surname. So I do it sometimes differently from my daughter, who is a Tshabalala, because I'm a Litchfield and a Dlamini. She's a Litchfield and a Tshabalala. So we will have variations somewhere, me and her.
Then I just, before we close off, there was a thought I had, and I just wanted, since we don't believe in death, and we believe in reincarnation, is it possible that when you go to like Avalon, there could be lots of your graves there? Is that not possible?
Of course, it's possible. And it's also possible that there could be none of your graves there because you are a reincarnate.
Are you somewhere
maybe
else?
Or maybe from 576, which is about 9 centuries back. So it's possible your grave could not be there. Because remember, reincarnation in African spirituality is a journey. You thoroughly need to be cleansed in the underworld. That's why I study the philosophy of Ma'at, please, from Kemet. But also, please, even as I say that, don't make a mistake of putting Kemet above Nubia. Nubia gave birth to Kemet.
Yes.
And then Kemet colonized Nubia. And Nubia came back again as Kush. So, don't think Kemet is the alpha and omega of our civilizations, the very first. That's not true. Besides, if you have skeletons here, a cradle of humankind, that date far beyond Kemet. You understand? So I'm trying to say reincarnation is a journey in African spirituality. That was Ma'at's job with the feather to judge the souls. And not everybody reincarnates. Don't fool yourself. Some people's one life are so horrible. All they need to be done for is to be cleansed. It's a journey until they are reunited with their ancestors. Stop saying when a person dies yesterday, they've been called unto their ancestors, they are united. No, they've been called. As for the unity, it's another thing. Because it depends how they walked for them to thoroughly now reach the stage of being united, to be gathered with them. So reincarnation, same thing. You need to have a mission to come and deliver. That is so important. No other living person can do it at that time. Although it is a choice, yes, and you can reincarnate, you can refuse to reincarnate and just stay as an ancestor. But it's a journey. You don't die this year and then you're reincarnated next year. It's a journey. So the possibility, after all, of saying yeah, Avalon, and there could be 8 graves of mine there, not really possible, because you're 40, so if you died, the life you say Avalon, it's that graveyard, it's one generation, in a way.
Okay, I
So,
hear you.
yeah.
So there could be pieces of us all over this globe, actually.
Yes.
Wow.
Which is why I say your ancestors aren't only those you are related to, or maybe aren't also only those that you know. Because Omia, think of Omia and say, it's 180,000 years old. They are saying it's even more than that, but white people don't want to accept it's that old. Now, how do you know? If you trace Omia back, there are some of them buried there. You don't even know them because your dad didn't know them, because your dad's dad didn't know them, because they date so far. That's why when you call your ancestors, I always say, I call all of you in your totality, thousands of years back, those of you who are with pure spirits. So some of them you think I'm not related to. We are sitting here. How do you know you are related to someone in Nubia? In pre-colonial Nubia, or 5,000 years ago, there was a Mia who married that one, Watini, Waya Embwe, Kenya, ultimately made themselves here. So don't limit.
Sure, thank you so much. So much information. I'm sure, again, we had, they know.
And then just quickly, as an African also, stop calling ancestors from the African continent. Your people were taken from here by the Trans-Pacific slave, the Arab one, of 476, that ran up to 1400. And they took especially women, remember, which they put in harems, sex slaves. So how many were born there? They still have their mother's DNA. So stop calling them from Africa only, because your ancestors could be all over. So when we are called Ukchisa ilaki stick, and then people laugh at me, but you amadlo zaka ilaki stick, I don't know, mhlambe some of them are even buried in India. But if I'm called to do this now, I will do it now. If it's laughable to you, that's your problem. So being an African is actually very complex and difficult, because we were taken all over the planet as slaves. So amathamba kwamanye dating back 8 centuries ago could be buried in Bombay for all I care while we are sitting here. And then kuthiwa hayi Ntsiki we amabhengele wama-Indian and thina sithi hayi suka Ntsiki Mia bayazi lento le uyahlanya, so uyahlanya wena awuhlanyi.
It's so nice that you've taught us that we must make the distinction of calling all the ancestors, even who are not related to us, and the fact that we have to say the ones abokhanya and abasifisela okuhle.
Yes.
Because we do have
evil spirits. Yeah.
I want to have uncomfortable conversations. I want the room to be divided. I want people to be screaming and mad at each other. Then I want them to understand each other. I want to see things from a different point of view. This is Unpopular Opinion.